Hello everyone, I'm Yath, a medical doctor by background. In this deep dive, I'll cover what clinical product management actually is, what a clinical product manager actually does, how you can prepare and break into the industry, and lastly, how to succeed once you're there. With that being said, let's dive in. So, why leave clinical practice? Three reasons come to my mind. First is the current digital health boom. It kind of feels like a right place, right time kind of moment. There is so much innovation happening right now within health tech by some fantastic companies, some okay companies, and some not so great companies. The role of a clinician is to bring fantastic innovation across to the healthcare setting. And we can do that because we understand clinician sort of pain points and experiences, and we understand patients. We fundamentally have treated patients and know what it is like to care for someone else. So, as a clinician, you bring with yourself that expertise that no one else in the health tech space can match if they haven't worked in a healthcare setting. So, it's like a right place, right time. There's so much going on, and this is a good opportunity for you to get stuck in. It's also impact at scale. In a healthcare setting, you're often seeing patients one to one, which is fantastic and it's extremely rewarding and satisfying. But at a healthcare sort of ecosystem level, if you move into the digital health or health tech space, then you have the opportunity through the decisions that you make and the products that you build to influence thousands, if not millions of patients. And that is a really exciting opportunity. Lastly, is to transform frustrations. I've been there. You've probably been there also. There are so many pain points about working in a healthcare setting, whether it's something as simple as logging in to the computer or logging a particular examination or requesting a scan or prescribing medication, whatever it is, there's lots of pain points. Some things are so manual that you are writing pen and paper in this day and age. In 2025, there are still hospitals where paper notes are still a thing. And there are prescribing tools where you're prescribing on paper charts, which are prone to so many errors happening all the time. And yeah, there are so many pain points that you will know, and you can bring that experience and those understandings with you into the health tech space to inform product companies on what they should be building and what are the pain points. So, what is product management? Really, it's just three things: users, business, and technology. Users are who will be using the product. Is it clinicians? Is it patients? Is it both? And what are their needs? What do they want? What are their problems? What are you solving? And what will they love? Not just like, not just get by with, but what would they love? What would they say about your product to others? Will they recommend it? Will they tell their friends about it? Do they love it? That's users thinking so deeply about your end users. And then it's business. What does the business want? What is important for the success of the business? How do you sell? Who are you selling to? What are you selling? And does your product meet the requirements of what you're trying to sell? And does your product increase the viability of your company longer term and the success of your company? So it's thinking very deeply about the business. And lastly is technology. You need to be able to build something that you can actually build. You can have dreams of what you want, but if it's not technologically feasible, then it's going to take a very long time to find solutions and to build what you want. So it needs to be feasible within the tech resources that you have, within the talent that you have within the company, and within what you can outsource or hire externally. So it needs to be something that you can actually do. And that's when you are a product manager. When you combine all of these three things, when you can think about all these three things and highlight what is at the center, at the core of the three things, that is your role. That is the product manager. So that's product management as a very general concept. What is healthcare product management? But more specifically and more interestingly, let me start by expressing some of the challenges. So healthcare product management is working in an extremely high stakes environment. You're not building a dating app where a certain bug can be okay, like no one's going to die, but you're building a app that's going to be used by clinicians or patients or both. If something goes wrong, the consequences can be catastrophic. So it's extremely high stakes, just like you being a doctor, just like the decisions that you make for your patients. If something goes wrong, outcomes can be really bad. So you're working in a high stakes environment, but also to make things worse or to compound things, startups and health tech companies move at significant pace that you'll never have seen in the NHS, pace that is actually really exciting and thrilling to work in. And when you're moving at this kind of pace with extremely high stakes in terms of the product that you're building, you need to be very careful. You need to be very detail orientated. Secondly, it's heavily regulated. So medical devices, even the products that you use, so software as a medical device, AI as a medical device, or a physical medical device, will be regulated if it's of certain levels on certain qualities. If it's going to be used to inform, diagnose, or somehow be involved in patient care, then it needs to be approved. Secondly, data privacy, compliance, so DTAC and DPIAs, and just being generally a good data company that upholds the privacy of your patient or clinician data. And then meeting clinical safety standards as well. So building things that are safe to use in a clinical setting. There's a lot of challenges that you're up against that you might not be working with in other sectors of tech, whether you're building a productivity app or a note-taking app. You don't have the same level of regulation. So that's new. Then you're working with multiple stakeholders. You have the potential to have multiple end users, so patients or clinicians or both. You have the possibility to work with healthcare management teams, so admins within different teams, or management personnel, rota coordinators, bed coordinators, whoever it might be. You have so many different stakeholders that you could be involved in depending on the product that you're building. And this is all compounded with the internal stakeholders. So the tech team, the engineers, the commercial team, the co-founders, a lot of different people are involved in the product and a lot of different people care about the product. And your role as a product manager is to collaborate and bring everyone together, make all voices be heard, and make the decisions a collaborative effort that brings across the best decision for your product based on everyone's expertise, opinions, and what the data is showing. Lastly, a challenge is actual integration. You could build the best product. You could build the Apple of healthcare. But if it is a struggle to use, so, an extra login, an extra device, an extra tab, and if it doesn't feel effortless, if it doesn't fit into your existing clinical workflow, then no one is going to use it. Your adoption is going to be super low. You're not going to sell much. Your feedback's going to be quite bad. And as a company, you probably won't succeed. So whatever you're building needs to fit seamlessly within the existing care ecosystem. So those are the challenges. Now let's come back to what actually is a clinical product manager. So we spoke about product management, we spoke about challenges of healthcare product management. Now let's bring those two things together and talk about the clinical product manager. First and foremost, you're a bridge builder. You are connecting the clinical world and the tech world, showcasing your clinical expertise and understanding of the healthcare system to techies who understand tech extremely well. You're also a safety guardian. You are championing and you are working for your end users by ensuring clinical safety standards and effectiveness is always upheld to the very highest level. If you're treating a patient, you will always do the best for that patient. In the same way, if you're building a clinical product, you should always build the best product that you can that will be or provide the best outcomes for your end users. You're also a evidence translator. There's a lot of medical jargon, medical literature, medical guidance that you will be able to navigate with some ease. And in a tech environment, the techies or the engineering teams or commercial teams might not have as much awareness of these guidances. So it's really your role to bring that sort of guidance into the picture, to explain it, to translate it, and to get everyone on board with what you're building, and to put some of those guidance behind the product requirements. So whatever you're building actually solves a real world problem and meets clinical guidance. Lastly, is being a clinical voice. In a tech environment, if you're a product manager and you don't have that healthcare exposure, you're not a clinician, then it's going to be very hard for you to think like a clinician, think about the nuances. You're probably very tech oriented, you're excellent product manager, but you're not really a clinician. So the value that you can bring is the clinical voice to say, okay, this is a great product. Technologically, it's really sound, but clinicians don't use things in this way, or they don't do things in this way. And patients, they won't understand this. It's your responsibility to raise that clinical voice and make it feel heard and make it be heard so that whatever you're building really does solve real life problems. So, what are your clinical superpowers? What can you already bring to the picture without any additional upskilling? Firstly, it's empathy. You have a very deep understanding of user needs, both clinicians and patients, and that's what you're best at. You've spoken to a lot of clinicians, you've worked in a lot of multidisciplinary teams, you've seen maybe hundreds, thousands of patients, you've cared for them, you've examined them, you've ordered tests for them, you've prescribed them things, you've discharged them. So you know that patient journey and you know how to empathize with patients extremely well. So you can bring that to the product environment where you need to be able to, again, empathize with different stakeholders, empathize with different requirements, different challenging opinions or views and perspectives, and to bring all of that together in a collaborative space. So empathy is really important. Secondly, diagnostic thinking. You see a patient, they come in with a few problems or concerns of their own, and you help to solve this. You examine them, you order some tests, you prescribe some things, you manage them for a few days, you see how they're getting along, you optimize their care, you send them home when you're happy that they're medically fit for discharge. That sort of diagnostic thinking and problem solving is extremely important as a clinical product manager, because essentially what you're solving are other problem statements. So end user has Y problem. What is the solution? How can you solve that problem? So it's just like thinking about a patient, but replace the patient with a product. Product presents with a problem, and then you go through your diagnostics of trying to solve that problem. And that's where you're going to be working with a lot of different people, techies, subject matter experts, commercial teams, various teams, regulatory teams, to think about the solution that you're building not only solves the problem, but meets the wider business approach, context, and regulatory approvals. So that's really important, and you already have that skill. Lastly, is credibility. It goes without saying that as a clinician, when you go to speak with other clinicians, they automatically connect with you. I've seen it firsthand. I've worked at Dockler for nearly 2 years, and every time I am involved in a meeting with other members of the Dockler team who are non-clinicians, there's always a ability for me to build much easier rapport with the clinicians on the other end of the call or in an in-person meeting than it is for my colleagues who are non-clinicians. Clinicians just see eye to eye with other clinicians, and you should really just leverage that. You have that credibility and you can easily build rapport. You can bring in those healthcare stakeholders. You can understand their problems even better. You can speak to them in a way that they understand, and you can bring them along the journey so they're intrinsically involved in the development of your product much more than a non-clinical product manager who probably won't be able to get them involved as much as you can. So whilst there are skills that you bring, there are also skills that you developed. I formed this like a pyramid because I think we need to start right at the bottom of what's foundational. What's extremely important is your regulatory knowledge. Being able to navigate things like EU MDR, DCB standards, DTAC, NICE, which you're probably already quite familiar with, but then new things like MHRA guidance. Why I say this is because you could build the most fantastic product feature, but if it doesn't, or if it's not regulatory compliant, then it's very difficult for you to, or impossible, let's say, for you to launch that product idea, product feature, and to get it into end users. So being very well versed with the regulatory bodies and the regulatory guidance is going to be super important for the success of your role as a clinical product manager and the success of the company in developing products in a way that is efficient, in a way that meets regulatory standards and drives forward the company. So that's something you need to develop, but it's very easy. With the likes of things like ChatGPT, Claude, and or your AI summarizers, you could plug in a lengthy document from the EU MDR on medical device classification, and then you could ask it to summarize the key pertinent points for you. And you could ask it questions based on what you're building. You could tell ChatGPT, hey, we're a company building XYZ, and we are thinking about building this feature. Use the EU MDR guidance. You can even upload the document as a knowledge or context, and then ask it, what do we need to know or do to be compliant with regulatory bodies? So it's ever easier to be knowledgeable about regulatory side of things. Next is product design. So that you won't be used to this in a healthcare setting as a clinician. This is all about understanding the users, doing user research. So going to see end users, whether it's clinician in their hospital settings or patients through patient panels, understanding all their problems, lots of different ways you can do user research. So you could do usability studies where you just watch them, observe them, take notes, write down all the pain points. You could do interviews where you ask them questions, open-minded, open questions, and learn as much as you can about the problems that they're facing. You can do surveys. You can use data in your user research. Lots of different ways. But this is a skill that you'll learn. Again, with time, you learn from people around you. Engineers will be somewhat familiar with the user research process. There may be other product managers within the company. There may be a dedicated user researcher. So these are the people that you can go to and learn more about user research. And then it's things like wireframes, prototyping. If I can give you an example, something as simple as a button within an app, it's much deeper than just a button on an app. It's what is the button's purpose? Why is it there in the first place? What should be the shape of the button? How are we going to make it obvious that it's a button? What should be the text within the button? Where are we going to place it within the app on the screen that you have? How are we going to animate it? How are we going to draw eyes to the button as well? If we want the patient or the clinician to click a particular button, how are we going to draw the eyes onto that button so that they do end up clicking it? So it's a lot that goes into every simple decision. What seems like a simple decision is not a simple decision. So that's something you'll get familiar with and need to get used to. Next is tech literacy. So, like clinicians understand the language of other clinicians, and we speak in almost code. Like if you hear an SBAR handover and you're a layperson, you've got like 32-year-old male presenting with chest pain, blah blah blah, and you've got 10 different acronyms in there. Did XYZ bloods, FBCs, USANEs, LFTs. And if you were a layperson listening into that, you would have absolutely no idea what's being talked about. And that's the same with technology. If you listen to two techies talk about a problem during development, they might be saying things that you just can't comprehend. So getting somewhat familiar with what they're saying and try to understand what they're saying will help you a long way in being that collaborator that can work effectively in these settings. But there's no prescribed way of learning this. It comes through osmosis, it comes through exposure, it comes through you being really willing to learn. Lastly, it's business acumen. We touched on this earlier. So the role of product manager is also to think about business. And this is something you won't be exposed to. As a clinician, you're never really thinking about the cost of an action when you're in a service such as the NHS. You just do what's best for your patient at that particular time. So if I need an MRI and I think that's the best course of action, I will just order an MRI. I don't think how much is the cost, what other implications are there because I've ordered one MRI for one patient, therefore another patient can't get that MRI, or there's going to be pressures on the service layers and all that kind of stuff. I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking, what is the best decision for my patient? Then I take it. And so thinking more around business and doing things like market analysis, looking at your competitors, looking at data, looking at financials, looking at the go-to-market strategy. These are the kind of skills that you develop and you need to be comfortable with to succeed as a clinical product manager. There are also a few mindset shifts that need to happen for you to be effective in your role. First is transforming or going from a mindset of certainty to experimentation. The motto of most health tech companies is fail fast, learn fast, but within regulatory reason. And this is very different to following rigid clinical protocols as a clinician. So you need to be open to the idea of a little bit of experimentation, A/B testing within safe ways to see what's really working, what are the end users really enjoying, and then building more of that, learning from your mistakes, and moving fast. That's different to being a clinician. Next is going from being an expert to being a learner. You're going into a new space. You might be an experienced clinician with 4 or 5 years of experience, but in product management, if it's your first role, you're a complete beginner and you need to embrace that. What would you do as a beginner? What did you do in F1? What did you do in your med school years when you wanted to learn? You probably went to a lot of bedside teaching. You probably did a lot of out of hours sort of revision and going to webinars and going into ward rounds and just observing things. You need to adopt that mindset in product management and in a health tech company. You need to be able to see opportunities, say yes to a lot of things, go observe people, make yourself open, make yourself free and flexible to learn. And that's really important for the pace at which you will succeed in this role. Then you need to go from authority to influence. So, as a doctor, you might be working from a place of authority, especially with your patients, where you're kind of guiding them from a place of credibility and experience and qualification to say, hey, I think XYZ is going on and this is how we think we can help you. How do you feel about that? And what actions are you going to take? So you're guiding from a place of authority. But here in a health tech space, you're guiding from a place of influence. You have that clinical voice, so you can influence decisions, but you're not really saying, or you're not really being 100%. You're not saying, I am a clinician, I have seen this, therefore we're doing that. That's not the approach. It's more like, I'm a clinician, I've seen this, so I feel, or like, this is what I add. What do other people add to the conversation? And then using everything that's being said and every bit of data or insight that you can get, what is the best decision to make based on what you know? So it's going to a place of influence rather than authority. Lastly, it's about, thinking about the system rather than the individual. As a doctor, you will have thought about your patient as an individual and taken action that's the best possible action for that specific patient. Now, you can do that in product. You can take one specific end user and think, what is the best feature I can develop for that end user? But you might have several end users with several profiles who are very similar in nature, but slightly different. A younger user, an older user, a technical user, a non-technical user. So you need to be able to go into a mindset of making decisions that are system-wide. As a whole, what is the best decision that I can make or the company can make that will be overall good for everyone, not just a specific subset of people. So those are a few mindset shifts that you need to be comfortable with. Now, I've spoken to lengths about what is clinical product management, what does the role entail, what are the challenges, but what does an actual day in my life as a clinical product manager actually look like? 4 things I'll highlight to you. First, daily stand-ups. So this is like mini ward rounds or mini like handovers at the start of every shift, let's call it, where you come together as a tech team, product manager, maybe some other people drop in as well, and you talk about what you're currently working on. What are your progress? What are your blockers? What are you most nervous about? And what do you need help with? It's like handing over a patient or discussing a patient and working out as a team what are the current priorities for that patient. Replace patient with product. That's what a daily stand-up is. Next, user research. This is all about spending lengths of time, as much time as you can afford to really understand your end user, to gather feedback in all the ways that I spoke about earlier, and to spend, at least some time every single day, or like dedicating a block of time every week to make sure you have the latest and best and most in-depth research available to you about your end users. Next are design reviews. So earlier I spoke about the button example and all the questions you'd ask about designing a button. But you spend a lot of time doing this for lots of different things. It could be medical content within an app or a platform. It could be the pathway flow of how the patient navigates through the app. It could be the clinician flow of how a clinician uses your product and what they need to do first, second, third, blah, blah, blah. It's about being in this review calls with subject matter experts, product experts, design experts, and working cross-functionally to review and decide on the designs of your feature developments. And then lastly, I think I put this last, but probably is the most important thing for a product manager to be really, really good at, is to prioritize features based on lots of things. So thinking about the product in terms of is this what the company currently needs? Is this what the end user needs? Is this what the regulatory bodies will be comfortable with us building? Is it clinically safe? Is it going to be commercially going to bring us a lot of money into the company? It's balancing all of these expectations and perspectives and prioritizing your product features based on this and saying, okay, I've considered all of this. I've also spoken to all of these people, and we've discussed some of the product feature backlog requests in some detail. And based on all of this, this is what we're working on this sprint. This is what we're working on next sprint. And on a high level, it's about the product roadmap. Each quarter, what are you working on? What are you working towards? And how is the product going to change and get better over the time? So that's one of the biggest roles of a product manager. Just to cover, how can you actually become a product manager and what can you do to, break into this space? It's really to take the leap. So firstly, learn as much as you can, absorb from talks such as this one or videos that you can find online about product management, day in the lives, what it is like to work, learn about the tech industry, learn about key terms, key words, common jargon, anything you can to learn is going to help you. Then engage. So this is all about networking with clinicians in tech, people such as myself, finding mentors. You can use platforms such as LinkedIn for this and network as much as you can and get yourself known in the space, because health tech at the end of the day is not that big. The space is quite small. It's getting ever bigger every single day, but currently it is still a place where if you can speak to the right people in the right rooms, then you will become known. And if you're known, then it's going to be easier to hire you. So next is to apply. So that's really just looking at, available vacancies. Maybe your network has presented you with a role and then actually putting in the application. So your CV, tailoring that. So it's very different, a medical CV to a corporate CV or a tech CV. So you can get a lot of your mentors to help with that, or people such as myself who, just really excited to help others get into the space. Feel free to reach out. We can look at your CV together. Writing a cover letter, you probably have not really got much exposure to that as a clinician, and tailoring the cover letter specifically for the role that you're applying to and the company that you're applying to. So never have a generic cover letter, always have a very specific one. And then it's about applying, hopefully getting an interview, developing your interview skills, which you're probably quite good at as a doctor. You probably had to interview several times to get into med school, and healthcare professionals, we're always interviewing all the time. So that's probably, an easier part for most people, but there's still some differences. And then hopefully landing a role, negotiating the terms, your pay, your total compensation, all that kind of stuff comes into the apply section. And then, it's to persevere. It's a difficult process. It's an ever increasingly competitive process. I think we were discussing with a few people in the space a while ago, and medical training application competition ratios for specialties are like 5-1, 10-1. If you do neurosurgery, maybe it's like 20-1. But in health tech, like if you look at some of the roles that go for big companies like Doppler, Flow Health, Sanoom, it's like 100 applicants to one role. So it's very different landscape. So you need to be able to persevere. And I think this is where your networking is going to be extremely important. If you know the right people in the right places, they can get you ahead of most other people. So yeah, network really hard, engage, but also persevere. It will take some time, but it can be achieved. So thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate your time and attention. So if you got this far, please do leave a like, and thanks so much for bearing with me and learning from me. Feel free to reach out. I've left my email here, and you can find me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe. I create a lot of content around careers, especially for doctors, but more generally as well, and around lifestyle design as well. So thank you so much.